folks, many of you have asked to do an episode on these competitive exams, how to crack the competitive exams like GMAT, GRE, and SAT. And today we are proud to bring you an episode which is going to cover GMAT, GRE, and SAT training. And let's chat with Kalaivani Radhakrishnan in today's episode. This is the Guiding Voice podcast series, The Guiding Voice for a Better Future. Folks, I'm your host, Navin Samala, just a fellow IT professional on a mission to shape the careers and lives of millions across the globe. Through The Guiding Voice, we help and enable successful leaders share their knowledge and wisdom with the world. And our audience will acquire more knowledge per every minute by tuning into The Guiding Voice than any other podcast in this space. Thank you so much for joining me today. And we are extremely pleased to have Kalai, part of The Guiding Voice journey in shaping the careers and lives of millions across the globe. Kalai, super excited to have you as part of the Guiding Voice journey. And it's so nice to have this conversation. And I'm glad you joined us.
Thank you so much, Naveen. Very grateful for the opportunity to talk to all the TGV listeners. Looking forward to have a fantastic podcast.
Wonderful. So, Kalai, let's start with your career journey. You are an engineer turned EA, and maybe I will talk about the EA aspect later. But what are the top 3 things that have helped you so far in your professional life?
Yeah. So, as you mentioned, I've had quite a few transitions in my career. So, if I have to share the number one thing that has helped me is the openness to change. I would like to quote the words of evolutionary biologist Charles Darwin. It is not the greatest of the species that survive, not the most intelligent, but the ones that is most responsive to change. So being a computer engineer, I was aware that the tech space changes at a faster pace, and to succeed in the industry, one should be adaptable to changes. Interestingly, my career trajectory also had a lot of changes, in terms of the roles that I have played and the industries that I have worked in. I started as a software developer, then transitioned into being a trainer, and then moved to management as a process excellence manager, and then I became an executive assistant to senior leadership. So I think I was able to do justice to all these transitions because I understood the importance of being open to change. So that's number one thing that I would like to share. Number 2 is learning. If you ask me, I see each and every day as an opportunity to learn something new. When I say learning, it is not just limited to the books. You can learn from blogs, articles, videos, podcasts like ours, and even from observing other people. For example, you can learn from your boss as to how he or she conducts themselves in a meeting. All these are learning, and I think the ability to learn will accelerate one's career growth. You have a lot of sources to learn from in this digital world, but the mindset to learn is what is important. And the last but not the least, the most important thing that I would accredit to for my career is networking. I think networking is an underestimated skill, because whatever systems and technologies you have in place, end of the day, the decision makers are going to be people. Whether you want to change or get a new job, whether you want to start a business and need funds for that, or whether you want to sell a product, you need to know people to get things done. And, I always ensure to network with people through as many sources as possible. And interestingly, that's how I got invited to talk here at the Guiding Voice as well.
That's right. Yeah, I can see your passion for networking, and thanks for sharing your top 3 things. Now, let's move on to the next question. I'm really curious, why did you transition from engineer to executive assistant?
So I've always been fascinated by problem solving. And I think as an engineer, I use my tech skills to solve problems. And as an EA, I use my managerial skills to solve problems. So I think the core purpose of my work still remains the same. And if I have to describe a day in the life of an EA, it looks very interesting, I would say. People who like to juggle between multiple things, who like to try a wide variety of activities will definitely enjoy being an EA. So, as you all know, executive assistants manage the time for the senior leadership. And apart from that, EAs also act as catalysts in various activities in the organization. So, maybe One day you will sit with the HR team and develop strategies to improve employee engagement in the organization. And the other day you will be working with the marketing team to execute a campaign. So, it's like you wear multiple hats within the organization, and not 2 days of the week will be same. So it's a highly cross-functional role, and hence a lot of time goes into communication, in person as well as over emails and over the phone.
So, which means you enjoy the company of senior leaders. You are always interacting with them. And what are some traits that you observed in great leaders that you started working with as an executive assistant?
I think one of the perks of being the EA is the opportunity to interact with senior leaders like, investors, board members, CXOs, VPs, and AVPs. From my observation, a common trait that I can see in all of them is that they really, really respect time. Not just their time, but also others. So I would say it's basically like they are investing time in activities, and they plan and prioritize it based on the impact that their time can create in the organization. It's more like the return of investment for their time is the impact created. And another quality that I personally admire the most is the mindful listening that they do. All the senior leaders that I have worked with have been great listeners, and they can extract information from even an emotionally charged conversation. Like someone can try and talk or talk angrily. Still, the leaders, they can stay calm and they can extract the facts from the conversation. It's interesting because we tend to listen to someone who listens to us. So when you talk to a senior leader and they patiently listen to you, you tend to agree with them when they talk. That sort of justifies why they are the senior leaders.
That's great. Kalai, let's now switch to the core of today's topic, GRE, GMAT, and SAT. What are these tests all about? Can you shed some light?
Sure. So GMAT, GRE, SAT, all of these are examinations taken by candidates who want to study abroad, especially in the US and in the Western countries. SAT is for undergraduate students, and GRE and GMAT are for post-graduation programs. Let's talk about the UG aspect. Let's talk about SAT first. So SAT stands for Scholastic Assessment Test. It's a standardized examination conducted for the undergraduate admissions abroad. So it is conducted by a non-profit organization called College Board. It's an offline test, and in India, it is administered 5 times in a year, in the months of March, May, August, October, and December. So if you are in a different country, the dates and months can vary. So SAT basically tests the writing, reading, and mathematical skills of the students. And usually the results are posted within 2 months from the test date. When I talk from the PG aspect, we have 2 exams here, GRE and GMAT. GRE is Graduate Record Examination. It's the test taken by people who want to pursue their master's and PhD programs abroad. You can see a lot of engineers taking this test for their MS admissions. It's a very common thing that you can see. It is conducted by a non-profit organization called ETS, Educational Testing Service. It's an online examination that can be taken in the test center anytime based on the availability of the slots. And this exam is section adaptive, which means the difficulty level of the next section will be based on the difficulty level of the previous section. And you also have GMAT as an option for people who want to pursue PG. GMAT is Graduate Management Admissions Test. And as the name suggests, it's taken for getting admitted into management programs in abroad universities and even for certain B schools in India. It is conducted by Graduate Management Admission Council. And like GRE, this is also an online examination that can be taken in the test center any time of the year based on slot availability. So one key difference between GRE and GMAT is that GMAT is question adaptive. Like the difficulty level of the next question is based on how you answer the current one. So both your GRE and GMAT, test the analytical capabilities, verbal and quantitative reasoning of the candidates. To put it in simple words, it tests for your English and math capabilities. Usually, once you write the exam online, the results are available within 3 weeks. And these days, certain B schools and management institutions have started accepting GRE scores as well, in the place of GMAT. Usually, you can see a lot of students taking these exams in the month of August, September, October, because it aligns with the fall deadline that most of the students aspire to go. And, it also gives them ample time to focus on the other aspects of the application. And one thing that I want to insist is, please note that for all these exams, the only valid ID proof that has to be carried is the candidate's passport. So if you don't have a passport and you want to take any of these exams, kindly, apply for passport as soon as possible.
Mm-hmm. Great. Thanks for those insights, Kalai. Now, let's talk about the eligibility criteria for these exams and also understand the scoring patterns, like what makes a good score in order to get admission in some top B schools or reputed colleges and universities.
Sure. So when I talk about eligibility criteria, there is no specific criteria to be met for taking these exams. However, we can see trends from, the previous test takers, right? So, for example, if you take SAT, most of the students who appear for the exam are class 10 and 11 students, because people want to focus exclusively on the board examinations for class 12, and they want to finish off the exam, SAT exams, prior to that. And also the SAT scores are valid for 5 years, and the concepts that appear in the exam are all covered in our school syllabus, I would say, by class 8 or 9. So from a scoring aspect, SAT is scored on a scale of 400 to 1600, which is like 400 is like 0 and 1600 is the perfect score. They want to keep the scores normalized, and that's the reason it's not scaled from 0 to 100 or something. So yeah. 400 to 1600, where 200 to 800 goes for math and 200 to 800 goes for English. And these points are incremented by 10 points. Like, for example, you can have SAT scores as 400, 410, 420, and so on. Like, you don't have scores like 415 or 412. Apart from the, summary score on a scale of 1600, College Board also gives cross-test score. So cross-test score means analysis in science and analysis in history and social science on a scale of 10 to 40. And you have a bunch of derived subscores that help the admission panel to decide what are the strengths of the particular student while considering for the admission. Some specific areas that get subscore are expression of ideas, standard English conventions. These two are from the English aspect of the exam. And heart of algebra, passport to advanced math, problem solving and data analysis. All these are from the math aspect of the exam. And these are all scaled from 1 to 50. So this is all about SAT. On the other hand, GRE is usually given by the third year students of the college, as they want to focus on placements and finally projects in the fourth year. So GRE score has 3 components: analytical writing assessment on a scale of 0 to 6, which is incremented by 0.5. And you have verbal reasoning on a scale of 130 to 170, where 130 is equivalent to 0 and 170 is the perfect score, incremented by 1 point. And similarly, quantitative reasoning on a scale of 130 to 170, incremented by 1 point. Now, talking about GMAT, working professionals with less than 2 years of experience are the majority of the GMAT candidates. Your GMAT score has 3 components: analytical writing assessment on a scale of 0 to 6, incremented by 0.5, just like GRE. You have the next component, which is integrated reasoning on a scale of 1 to 8, incremented by 1 point. And the composite score on a scale of 200 to 800, incremented by 10 points. So integrated reasoning is the ability to comprehend big passages and analyze the data given. And the composite score is just an indicator of the verbal and quantitative reasoning. I've given you all the numbers associated with these exams. And to simply summarize how the scoring system works is, all the test scores are a function of the number of questions you answer correctly, which we call as the raw score, and the difficulty level of the question that appears in the exam. Like, all of these three tests are standardized tests, which means there is a balance between the difficulty level and the evaluation, right? So if you get a harder paper, your evaluation is lenient. And if you get a simpler paper, your evaluation is going to be slightly harder. So it's a function of raw score and the number of and the difficulty level of the question. And all of these tests follow their own algorithm to map the raw score with the respective scaled scores mentioned earlier based on the difficulty level of the question.
Yeah, this is very comprehensive, and thank you so much for sharing. And now, since you are a GRE, GMAT, and SAT trainer, and you have been training hundreds and thousands of students so far, how can people crack these exams? So, how should somebody approach preparing for these?
Sure. I would say time management is the key, because all the concepts and formula, properties, everything is something that you would have learned in your school. Even if you want to appear for GMAT exam, the mathematical concepts tested are probably covered by class 9, I would say. So time management is the differentiator between a successful test taker and a normal one. And so I would request everybody to practice always with the timer. Otherwise, it is as good as solving a WhatsApp forward puzzle. It doesn't really add up to the preparation of a competitive examination. And with respect to the content, you have a lot of sources available online, and paid as well as free. And if the student requires additional support in preparation, they can very well take professional help from a trainer or a mentor. And one important thing that I want to highlight is these exams are more about how good you are as a test taker than knowing a lot of concepts. So take as many practice tests as possible before going to the actual exam. And I suggest my students to take at least 5 tests before going to the actual exam, because that will mentally prepare you, and you can be as focused at the last minute of the exam as you were at the first when you practice taking full length test. So that's about the preparation.
Mm-hmm. That's an excellent advice. In fact, I can relate to that. When I wrote engineering entrance exam, I faced a lot of challenge in terms of managing the time and all. In case if I practiced, probably I would have got a better rank than what I scored for sure.
Right.
Yeah, this is an excellent tip. And let's switch gears and Kalai, talk about your doodling and writing journey. So what has inspired, and what do you doodle and what do you write about?
So, these are my two hobbies, I would say. So, I've been inspired by my maternal grandmother to make rangolis, or in Tamil they call columns, since my school days. I was intrigued by the intersection of math and creativity in rangoli making. And I started exploring other mediums, because not always you will get the opportunity to go and make a rangoli, right? And eventually I ended up doodling on paper. I doodle under the pen name The Doodle Princess. I think doodles help me to channelize my emotions and help me connect with others and even with myself, I would say. And I'm grateful that I get noticed for the skill, and I've been fortunate that I designed the covers of 2 books that are published. And my work is also featured in the world's largest virtual gallery, certified by the World Book of Records UK. Writing is another hobby, and I don't really have a methodical approach towards writing. I write when I feel like, and as of now, I have 3 of my write-ups that are published in books.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. So you designed 2 book covers, right? That's great. And here is a public request. I know it might be a surprise to you, but we are in the process of writing a book on TGV journey so far. Like, we are going to, of course, this is the first time I'm sharing so openly in a public forum on a podcast, but I would love if you could come up with a design.
Oh, definitely. I would love to do that.
Wonderful. Yeah, let's talk about it offline. And now, Kalai, talking about the other aspect, like you're a kind of multifaceted personality. That's what I have seen by going through your LinkedIn profile, and I was super impressed. Like you said, your weekly routine mandatorily includes reading, gardening, meditating, and cycling. How do you balance and manage stuff? Isn't it hard?
I don't feel like an external effort because I've made all these as my habits. So nothing additional that I do to do all these stuff. So I have a small terrace garden which I visit in the morning and I water the plants every morning. And I sit and meditate there. It's very serene. In the morning, you have the birds chirping and all. It's so lovely to sit and meditate. And then I start my day. And before I go to bed, I ensure that I read at least for 10 minutes a day. And that's how I manage these three things. And cycling is a recent hobby. I started it since last year, September. And it's so much fun. So, I mean, it's a little difficult to manage cycling. So, what I do is I have a weekly minimum distance that I want to cover, and I plan my schedule and take time out of it to accomplish that.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. All right. So this has been a fabulous and insightful conversation so far, and I'm going to kick off a quick rapid fire round with your consent. Is that okay?
Sure.
All right. So let's spice up the episode so that our audience get a chance to get to know other side of Kalai. All right. So Kalai, here comes my first question. Do you kill bugs you find inside or take them outside?
I kill it inside because I'm scared it will come back again if I leave it out.
Fair enough. What is the best piece of advice you received so far?
Stay calm in any situation because that helps to process and respond accordingly to the situation. When you get tensed, you tend to mess up things as well.
Mm-hmm. All right. Great. Moving on to the next one. What is the last craft that you made?
I made a 3D greeting card for my friend's wedding.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Your friend must be lucky. All right. So if you could be transformed into one animal, which one would you choose?
I would like to be transformed into a beaver because it's the nature's engineer. I would like to see the world from the beaver's eyes.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Moving on to the last one for the rapid fire. What is one electronic gadget that you'd like to see or invent yourself?
Nothing like invent, but I would like to add a feature in the Ola, Uber apps. If there is a drag and drop for the cars as well, that could be fantastic because the waiting time is too high these days.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. So, yeah, that has been a great rapid fire round. And with that, let's go back to the mainstream. And I want to ask you one final question for today's conversation. What will be your one piece of advice to those aspiring to make big in their careers?
I would say consistency of efforts. That's the most critical aspect for success. Whatever is your goal, whatever is your ambition, ensure that the efforts that you take are consistent. It shouldn't be like one day you feel all motivated and you do a lot of stuff. On the other days, you just go into stealth mode. That's not really going to fetch you success. So consistency of efforts, because that's what differentiates legends from others.
That's a great piece of advice. And thank you so much, Kalai, for joining us today. It has been great talking to you. And thank you for all the insights shared. And I'm sure this is going to help our audience who are aspiring to crack GMAT, GRE, and SAT exam. Thanks again.
Thank you so much, Navi.
All right. So, folks, before we move into the trivia section, here is a small request to you. Please subscribe to us from the app where you have tuned in from, in case if you haven't done already, so that you'll be notified about future episodes. We launch 2 episodes per week, and Tuesdays are mainly focused on personal transformation and self-help, soft skills development, so on and so forth. Whereas Thursdays, we call them as Tech Thursdays, wherein we feature contemporary technology-related topics and also cover entrepreneurial journey. All right. So also, if you have loved this episode and found it useful, please share with at least 3 of your friends or colleagues who can benefit from the guiding voice. Thank you so much in advance. Now, let's cruise into the trivia segment of today's episode. So today we spoke about 3 exams, SAT, GRE, and GMAT. In fact, there is a question that every student has thought of in their student life. Who in the world invented this system called examination? And I'm sure you must also be thinking about it. That's why I'm presenting you a fact about who invented the exams. The guy who invented exams is a French philosopher named Henry Fischel, and he has taught in various countries like the United States, Great Britain, and so on. In case if you have any topic suggestions, request you to drop me a note on my email, theguidingvoiceforyou@gmail.com, or reach out to us through any social media platforms. That's all for today. Thank you so much for joining, guys. I'm Naveen Samala, a fellow IT professional and a passionate learner on a mission to make a difference in the lives and careers of millions across the globe. Until next time, bye-bye.